Now this is right after the start. What we see already is that Oxford still has a bit of that missing the main drive technique. And this may sound harsh, but if you look at it, you see that now as Oxford is right after the start. I mean, the boat is not quick now. You see oars bending, 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 that's all good. We already have different positions of the upper body throughout the boat. 2 men and, where is he? Exactly, 6 men. That's a difference. There's a difference in physiology and how you can use it. But it will become more throughout the race. Hello and welcome everybody. My name's Aram, and as I did 2018, I want to do a video analysis of the men's boat race 2019. This time it was pretty close compared to last year. Last year we had a huge gap, huge difference between Cambridge, who won, and Oxford, who came second. This year it was much closer, and the reason for me is a change in technique on both sides. Again, like last year, I did not care about erg scores, I did not care about raw power, I didn't care about height. That's not my topic. I'm going to talk about technique and things I can see throughout the race. So basically I'm acting as if I didn't have any background information about the teams. As we follow the stroke, we see that the stroke basically ends right after the 0 mark. So this is where the oars are perpendicular, which is where in sweep rowing, where the oar is in a 90-degree angle to the boat. And this is what I mean. Hands go down. If you basically don't pivot backwards with the upper body and the hands go down already, it basically means that you don't propel the boat as much as you could. It's more a power-based stroke than a leverage-based stroke. Now what do I mean with this? Power-based would mean that you use the main muscle group, the leg muscles. So you have the quadriceps and you have the glutes and the entire hip extension muscle chain, only to the point where you can do the leg drive. So this is mainly quadriceps, which is the front part of your leg muscles. And then would be the interesting part, which actually is the propeller, which propels the boat further by using your body weight. When you use the leg drive and then you use your body weight to create a bit more momentum on the blade, which accelerates the boat, that's basically free extra acceleration. Now, if you transit from leg drive to arms pretty quickly, you're missing out the greatest effect on the boat. And I think Oxford does it, and this year I think Cambridge does it as well. Last year, Oxford was not very efficient. This year, Oxford became more efficient, but Cambridge became less efficient. It's all about this topic. How much upper body weight in terms of pivot at the right point of time throughout the leg drive do they use? So if you had to draw force curves, it would basically peak, and right after perpendicular you would lose it. And this is not necessary, because this is where, if you still can keep momentum on the blade past the 0 line, so where the oar is in a 90-degree angle to the boat, it's a very effective point of time to do that. Yeah, let's follow the stroke a bit more. See, it's done, and the upper bodies are still very straight. Now, why would you do that in an 8? And it's very simple. There's a good reason why they're doing this, I believe, and I have no personal connections to either of the crews. It's very good to synchronize an 8. In a lot of team boats, people tend to lean back too much. If you lean back too much, you're basically losing your body tension. And if you're losing body tension, you're swinging around in the boat and you're not really stabilizing it anymore. If you can make your team understand that they have to fix their upper body at the finish, stable upper body at the finish, you basically stabilize the boat. It's not offset so terribly, and it's a good way to quickly synchronize a team. The downside is if you basically skip the upper body pivot motion because you are afraid athletes lean back too much, or overextend the finish of the stroke, which doesn't propel the boat at all. If you do this too much, you're missing out on the greatest propelling effect of the stroke. And I think this is what is the case with Oxford. Let's follow that stroke once more. preparation phase, alright, good. Now, the legs really start to work now. This is the perpendicular position almost. Now watch the arms. They're already coming too early. A lot of arm work there. This should be the point of time where you would want to use your trunk weight, your upper body weight. And what else we see is this downward motion towards the finish. He does it especially. I mean, for me, it's easy to sit there comfortably on my desk, having the boat race on the screen behind me. I'm not there at the start. I'm not there in the boat. I don't feel the adrenaline. I don't feel the same amount of excitement. Having to wait forever in the start before we can actually, start the race. It's a whole different ball game when you're in the boat. So for me, it's of course easy to sit there and say, hey, you do this and this and this wrong. You try this and that. But again, I'm trying to do it in a very humble way with a lot of admiration for the athletes and the coach. It's not easy to prepare a team this way. But what's interesting for me is, what can I learn? Let's follow the stroke once more. There's something else I tend to see more and more now. When the blade comes into the water, the actual catching of the water, the idea is to anchor the blade, and if this is the water surface, you would just bring it below the water surface, and ideally, you don't want to bring it too low. If you bring it too low, you're moving like a saw through the water, and every time you move up and down, there's no chance that the water bubble in front of the blade could come together. So what you want to do is you want to put the blade in the water, have it sit still, anchor. Whenever there's no up and down motion, there mustn't be any up and down motion on the hands, so this is two positive side effects. You can immediately start to transfer force from your feet onto the blade. If the blade doesn't give you an anchor, you can apply as much force from your feet as you want. Your blade is not ready to transfer that into the water onto the boat, but your blade is actually moving through the water. And this is something I started to see more ever since I started to work with Ian Randall and started to use the Randall foils, these plastic parts you put on top of an oar to make sure that it doesn't go too deep. So there are already quite some teams now who made good experiences with it. And I believe we will see some of these foils being used at the 2019 World Cup season in the run-up to the Olympic qualification World Championships. Now, seeing this, just check the blades. We're just before catch. You see that they already start to drive when the blade is in the air. And you see that there's blades are going pretty deep. You can see the hands are still going up. And the more excitement there is, the more power you want to use, and the less technique will be used. So the less feeling for soft and easy catch. You can do it without the Randall foils, but it's very difficult because the shape of a blade is not designed to help you stabilize the blade in the water. But if you had it stabilized just 1/10 of a second earlier, this would already give you quite an advantage. But none of the teams have actually used it, so neither Cambridge nor Oxford. I'm curious to see when they're going to use it. Okay, now we have talked about Oxford. Let's continue watching the race a bit. So the race unfolds. You see the guys having troubles to find resistance throughout the drive. It's more like a rotational stroke. Cambridge seems to me, and the camera angle is really not the best one, but we can see that Cambridge uses a bit longer of a leg drive, and they use a bit more upper body pivot motion, but only a bit. I think last year it was significantly more, and I've prepared last year's video as well, but let's stick to 2019 and have a look how the race unfolds. You probably all have recognized James Cracknell in the 2 seed. He's one of the most remarkable athletes I've ever seen. I know he became Olympic champion in 2000, but the most interesting race for me was 2001, where he actually won the coxless pair with Matthew Pinsent and the cox pair, all within 2 hours. And that's phenomenal. It's absolutely outstanding. And this very James Cracknell now managed to get back into the Cambridge boat, and Cambridge is going to win. Fantastic. An interesting feature we also see is the heart rate. I think they only have the stroke guys and the coxswain's heart rate. And you might see throughout the race, if you watch the entire thing on YouTube, if you the boat race channel on YouTube, you can also see the coxswain's heart rate, and it's actually up in the 180s. So pretty tough work for the coxswain as well. Good. Now Cambridge manages to pull ahead just before the first turn, and it's basically with even common grounds and even ground. There's not much difference. And now there's a bit of a quarrel. Both trying to get the ideal line. They try to get an advantage. And Oxford later files a protest. So the coxswain raises his hands and say no, it was not okay to race. I think both tried to be stubborn, and none of them reacted ultra swiftly. That's like part of the game. We always see coxswains trying to steer too close. I think it's a lot of risk. I don't know if this is really necessary and needed to do that. But maybe as a coxswain you want to try to get the most out of your team, and you don't want to be the one to blame because you went out of the way of somebody else, and therefore your team might have lost. And you can't really prove that it was just a physical thing or technical thing. But the athletes really stayed as much as possible in the rhythm. So this is something we can all learn. If you have a coxswain, trust your coxswain. If your coxswain messes up, it's his or her job. Don't worry about you having to do the coxswain's job. If you have an experienced coxswain, he or she is going to do the job well enough. Your job is to propel the boat. And I think this is what both athletes did well. Now we see both Oxford and Cambridge, and pretty much that's the difference we also see at the finish line. It's about 1 length difference. If we now have a look at Cambridge, what I like about these guys is they actually use a bit more of a leg drive. Different, body positions, different ways to row. Rogritsky Simchik from Poland, he's a fantastic single scholar. I think he rowed for California last year or 2 years ago. Now he's with Cambridge, and he's really an experienced, very good rower. No wonder he sits at stroke seat. So Cambridge had a lot of good athletes to choose from. Still, you got to perform, and we see different body positions here throughout the boat. We see a lot of coherence between 4, 5, 6, and 7. Nathan here at the catch is slightly off, but I think he propels the boat very well. He does a great job as a stroke. And then we get huge experience in 2 seat with James Cracknell, and 1 and 3 seat also very well together. So I think the overall congruency again with Cambridge is simply more than it was with Oxford. The way to propel the boat, the leg to hip transition, as short as it is pretty much together. You don't see that cut off of the stroke throughout the race. Now, let's have a look at this once more. I want to show you something. You see this right there. There's a very narrow gap between the seat and the heels, but still, all of the guys managed to propel the boat together. You see that? Leg drive, more leg drive, more. This is gorgeous to see. Pivot of the upper body and using a bit of the upper body weight. Let's have it once more. Okay. Leg drive, pivot of the upper body. Also, well, he doesn't do it a lot. Okay. Leg drive, pivot of the upper body. It's check the same thing with Oxford. Leg drive, arms. It's like this much. There's really not a lot of difference, but there's also not a lot of difference between the 2 boats at the finish line. Have a look at it once more. Preparation. Okay. Oh, very good. Synchronized catch. Good. Cambridge. Leg drive. Oh, just see that? Right there. Leg drive. He just pushes the boat with the legs. Beautiful. What is he doing? Pushes the boat with the legs. No upper body motion. Leg drive only. leg drive only, leg drive only. Beautiful. Have a look at Oxford. Upper body motion. Okay. Nice leg drive. Upper body motion. Leg drive. Upper body motion. So there's a difference in the way the guys propel the boat. And a team boat is fast if you have a lot of people influencing boat the same way. This is basically what makes a difference in an 8. This is why there are 8s which are faster than other 8s with having weaker people in there, weaker athletes. It's the joint forces that are used. Leg, upper body. Okay, he's trying to connect. You can see this very well there. Tries to start with a leg drive. Too much leg drive, upper body. So he basically does the leg drive with a straight back. Okay, which is not effective. Nice leg drive. So we have a nice leg drive on starboard twice. Once on port side. And a bit on both sides of the stroke. So we have 3 to 4 people. We have 3 to 4 people in the Oxford boat having a leg drive, while 3, 4, 5 are using an immediate upper body pivot. This does create different force curves. So on a standard erg that doesn't have that doesn't measure force with strain gauges and doesn't measure force with an angle sensor, but just with an algorithm and based on chain speed and wheel and airfin speed, you can generate pretty similar erg splits, but it doesn't tell you anything about how you accelerate the boat. That's the main difference, and this is why I don't care a lot about erg scores. I do care a bit because it does show physical power and endurance, but it doesn't really tell me how the athlete does it, and the how is precisely what makes the difference. Now let's have a look once more at the Cambridge boat, because we have them actually side by side. So uses leg drive. All right, we don't see the stroke, but I think it does as well. Uses leg drive. Okay, uses leg drive. You don't see that upper body pivot motion. Uses leg drive. Uses leg drive. Correctly uses leg drive. Yeah, also. And same with the bow. So this consistency, the understanding, the general understanding of how we in a team want to move the boat is what creates the difference. It's really a common picture, a common feeling, a common sound, whichever communication type you are, kinesthetic, visual, auditory, that creates or breaks a team boat. And this is what we do a lot on the Biler robot, for example. Just have a look at your force curves. What is your handwriting in the boat? And by handwriting, I mean, how do you propel it? Do you peak early? Do you have a bit of a plateau? This is a significant difference. And the main difference we see between Oxford and Cambridge, for me, is mostly the commonality in how they accelerate the boat. General, they have a very early or no upper body pivot at all. The reason why in the Oxford boat some athletes pivot not at all or pivot too early is because you feel it. If you would usually row in a way that you have a nice solid leg to hip transition with an upper body pivot, but you feel like, hey, I'm basically the only one, or you feel like there's not really a lot of support from the team in terms of they do it the same way, then you will find a way to be synchronized at the finish. So naturally what you want to do is just cut off the stroke, because it's better to stay in the rhythm. And this is what happened to the Oxford crew, I think. It's better with Cambridge. But again, I think Cambridge did a better job last year, technically speaking. And I've prepared a video of 2018. Let's have a look at it. So what I like better about Cambridge 2018 is the duration of the leg drive. You see that there's a long leg drive before they, in a joint way, pivot the upper body. Let's go back once more. There's a long leg drive, and you see the upper body weight is used in a much more effective way. Now, I'm not advocating that you should use an endlessly long backswing of the upper body. I'm advocating that you should use your body weight to a certain extent, and you should use it at the same time and at the same, with the same intensity. If you're able to synchronize the usage of that propeller body weight, this boat's going to fly. And last year Cambridge, I think, did a better job of that, and they were far ahead of Oxford. So to me, this is a purely technical thing. Okay, that's the finish of the 2019 boat race, and my greatest respect to both teams. I think you guys did a great job, and I'm really full of admiration for what you guys do. It's just a pleasure to watch, and it's a pleasure to watch how much enthusiasm there is, and besides all the study work you have to do to train that hard. My greatest respect for you guys, and I think we all have to pay tribute and respect that. Still, I like to be a bit picky and learn from the best, and I think Oxford and Cambridge are some of the best university crews in the world. Yeah, good guys, that's it so far, and I'm looking very much forward to the 2020 boat race, and I'm very curious if there's going to be a difference. Okay guys, have a very good day, and I'm looking forward to see you soon. Bye bye.